Welcome back, everybody. This video is just some general principles about good presentation practices, and the information that I'm going to share with you today is applicable for presentations in person, which hopefully we'll be able to get back to next semester. But it's still valuable information that I wanted to share with you that will apply once you're no longer just virtual students, all right? So don't feel like you have to apply all of these things to our presentations at the end of the semester because obviously it won't all be applicable. Okay. So some general principles about giving a presentation. I want to make clear that oral and written are not the same thing. So what you write down for a research paper, for example, will sound and should sound different from the word choice in a spoken presentation, right? For example, right now, I'm speaking to you about a topic that I'm familiar with, but I did not write out a script for this. I have a few words written on the screen that spark my memory, and I know what I want to say next, and I just say it off the top of my head type of thing, right? All right. So oral and written, not the same thing. Make sure that the language you're using is appropriate for the medium that you are using. Number 2, nerves complicate things. Absolutely. I am a nervous presenter too. May sound strange that I'm a teacher and I say that, but if you put me in front of a room of my colleagues, I get nervous. So this means you need to practice before you get in front of a room full of people. Again, we're spared this semester because you won't be presenting in front of a room full of people, but just some people sitting in front of their screens. And number 3, PowerPoint is not all. Please don't put all of your time and energy into a glitzy PowerPoint presentation and forget to plan what you want to say and how you deliver it and organize it. It's more about your speaking. That's really what I'm grading you on. And if you put too much focus on the PowerPoint, you may end up inadvertently putting too much written text on the screen for your audience to follow. We're supposed to be listening to your voice instead of just reading the screen. If we can read all of the information on your screen, then you might as well have just sent us an email instead. Okay, so a different medium, different goal, sort of, right? Yes, you do want to meet the audience needs for information, but when you are speaking to a room full of people, you can have different strategies. So when you are speaking to a group of people, you need to think about what the goal and the plan is for your presentation. So are you trying to inform people? Are you trying to convince them, persuade them? What is the plan for your presentation? How do you want to structure your ideas and information? And where are you in the presentation? So where would you be standing or sitting? And how involved are you in terms of pointing to things on the screen, or are you relying on animation and graphics to do that sort of work for you? It's not that there's a right way or a wrong way. It's just these are things that you need to consider before you have a presentation. When you are conveying a message orally, choose the words carefully. So as you're planning out what you will say, organize your keywords. Keywords are what you want to have up on the screen that again signal to your memory those details that you want to talk about. That way you're not reading a bunch of things from the screen. Next, short sentences. Again, just look at these PowerPoints as examples. You're seeing small groups of phrases on the screen and not full paragraphs. Again, you don't want your audience to have to sift through listening to your voice and trying to read full paragraphs on the screen in a limited amount of time. It's stressful and uncomfortable for the audience. So use simpler vocabulary on the screen. Provide examples while you're speaking and paraphrase the information on the screen. Again, I know it's boring for you guys if you hear a teacher just reading the same phrases from a PowerPoint instead of talking to you, like in a presentation style, right? So try to paraphrase the information that's on your screen to keep your audience interested, but also to help people who may not have understood the specific phrasing you had written in the first place. So, use your voice when you're trying to convey the message. I cannot hear you from the back row if you aren't speaking loudly. Again, this time around, you're good as long as your microphone's working. But in a classroom situation, especially for the more soft-spoken students, you need to make sure that you practice projecting your voice so that everyone can hear you. Something else that happens when you're speaking at the end of a presentation is you trail off. Your voice gets quieter. That was great until the end, right? When you get a little bit nervous, maybe your voice gets quiet at the end of a phrase, and so people can only hear the first 75% of any given sentence that you say, right? And the next part here, a little inflection would help me catch the important words. If you are speaking too robotically, then this is sort of what you could sound like, and that's it's hard to listen to, right? Next one, stress, pause, repeat. Those important phrases, those key words, you might want to stress your words, pause between your phrases, maybe repeat, stress, pause, repeat. Yes, these are strategies that your teachers use when teaching you and are helpful tips for you giving presentations as well. Convey the message. So 5 points for effective body language. Again, there's only so much of this that I can grade you on this time around, but good to know for all of the other presentations you will end up doing eventually. Yes, face the audience. You never want to turn your back to the audience, especially while you're talking to them. Make eye contact, or if you have to give a presentation over the internet through a webcam, look at the camera. Don't make it obvious that you're trying to read something off screen because you didn't prepare your presentation. It's the same principle, right? You should be able to talk freely about the topic because you're prepared enough to do so. Move, but not too much. Don't freeze like a robot sort of thing. Talk with your hands if you're comfortable doing that. And if you were in front of a room, then you might be walking a little bit back and forth to gesture towards items on the screen. So use gestures that convey the message that you're expressing. Don't let dress distract. So dress appropriately for the occasion. This does not mean you need to dress up in a suit and tie by any means, but don't wear your pajamas, for example. I know we're all at home and we're comfortable, but on presentation day, make yourself presentable. So, general principles revisited. Oral and written are not the same. Nerves complicate things. I can't stress this enough. You do need to practice. Practice in front of a mirror. Record yourself on your webcam. Watch your own presentation. I know it's really uncomfortable and awkward to do that, but it's good practice. And number 3, PowerPoint is not all. All right, let's move on to number 2, nerves complicate things. So the most important part, take the time to prepare. Yes. Plan how to hand off between group members. So by that I mean, if you are the first person in your group presenting, have an idea of what phrase you will use to introduce the next part of the presentation that will be given by someone other than you. Think about how you'll introduce them, okay? So practice with a critical audience. You're stuck at home with friends or family or both, so have them sit through your presentation as a trial run. There's not much else going on right now, right? Sit them down and have them listen. Check out the space beforehand. So whether that's in a classroom or online, make sure your technology works. If it's a room, make sure you know how to use the projector, clicker, the mouse, that your USB works, whatever it is that you're using, and practice using that space so that you know how you want to walk around, how much time you need, that sort of thing. So, in terms of nerves, again, remember that you're ready. If you've practiced, if you've awkwardly forced someone to sit down and listen to your presentation already, nerves won't be quite as bad. It'll also help that you'll be able to sit down at your computer chair and talk to the screen, so you don't have to worry about standing awkwardly in front of 40 people. Remember that you have a message that you want to convey. I told you before, you got to make sure you're picking a topic that you're interested in. You have to be convincing, right? You need to be enthusiastic while you're talking. So tell us about the interesting things you've been reading. That alone will help calm the nerves a bit if you're actually interested in your topic. And breathe. Don't forget to breathe. So let's move on to the last point. PowerPoint isn't all. By this I mean you are the driver and the PowerPoint is the vehicle. Okay? You are in charge, not the PowerPoint. If you are the one who created the PowerPoint, then you know what's going to come next, but you are in charge. So as you are doing your presentation, please do not read slides. Please do not read full paragraphs that you have written in front of you on your desk either. I'm not judging your reading aloud abilities. I'm judging your speaking and your knowledge of the content. You should be able to freely talk about it like you would in a regular conversation, okay? Don't use complex slides. By that I mean, don't try to jam too many images or phrases or sections into the slides. It's overwhelming and distracting. The simpler, the better. So don't use unintelligible slides either. There needs to be a flow and a very clear outline of where the presentation is going. Okay, there should be a visible structure to it. If things seem randomly jumbled together, your audience, which includes me and some of your classmates, may be confused. Next, do not use irrelevant or distracting slides. So please make sure that if you are spending the time creating slides, finding images, formatting things, please make sure you actually have enough time to talk about any of the images that you put into your presentation. If you try to put too many things in and you don't have the time to talk about it within your 10-minute limit, then it will distract you and throw you off course. And then that kind of impacts the nerves, right? So make sure that you don't have any irrelevant or distracting information. You also don't want to rush through your slides, again, if you end up including too much. So you're trying to narrow this down to the most important key points that you encountered while doing the reading in preparation for this presentation and completing your annotated bibliography. You don't have to tell me about everything you read. There's not enough time for that. Tell your listeners how each slide fits into the overall presentation. Again, you're picking the most important or interesting bits of information from what you've been reading, and it needs to be clear to the audience how it all fits together. So tell them. Use your slide text as an outline. So again, not putting complete sentences on the screen. Think about the PowerPoint presentations that your teachers give you as models. Hopefully they're not throwing full paragraphs up on PowerPoint slides. I don't want you to do that either because again, when you're nervous, you'll end up turning around and just reading the full phrases off the screen. That's also one of the reasons why teachers don't do that either. Graphics. You need to be interpreting the information from the image instead of just reading. We can read, so you don't need to read the title and the labels on the X and Y axes. Tell us what is relevant or important to you in that graph. Why did you decide to show us the graph? All right, you don't need to read the details for us, but what is helpful is if you interpret. Why does that information have value to you? So some final suggestions. Number your slides. This will help you budget your time. So if you know, for example, your presentation has 15 slides, for example, you have a rough idea of how much time you have left, and say you're 40% into your presentation, you have to budget your time properly.